Winter is coming. Yes, it is. Like I mentioned before, we went straight from summer to now it's like 4 straight days of rain, which is all right. Besides the fact that this head cold won't go anywhere. Still not sure if it's head cold or inhaling insulation. So for working in the shop, not sure which one, but yeah. So, just gonna go over a couple things quickly here about what pretty much anybody who has the opportunity to receive snow or ice storms, just most of the United States. I mean, we even saw a few years ago Texas get some pretty bad ice storms. So, it kind of applies to most of the 48 and well, obviously Alaska as well. But I strongly suggest that people have some kind of alternative heating source in their house. Preferably a wood stove, just because those little gas or oil and gas space heaters that people can buy, they're pretty dangerous. You have a lot of house fires. People forget to turn them down and they go to bed, and they get tipped over by an animal or something, and I hear a lot of bad stuff with those. And I've been around a few, and they get hot, man. And having that sitting, in your house with a bunch of flammable material around it, it's pretty, it's pretty risky. I don't like it, especially if you got kids. It's not really an option because, they might touch it. They're not paying attention. So, I definitely encourage everybody, even if you've no heating problems in your house whatsoever. You've got a good furnace and HVAC system. You should have a wood stove, man, because you just don't know. The weather's getting more and more crazy. And if you listen to Cliff's reports, he talks about the miniature ice age that we started in last winter. And he said this winter is going to come early, going to have another long and early winter. And so far he's been pretty darn accurate on that stuff. And anybody out there who's like super global warming, blah, 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 we'll get into that in another video. And not that I don't agree with global poisoning and manipulation of climates, because I certainly do, but it's not because people are driving around SUVs. But we'll get into that in a different video, because that we can get pretty deep into that. So that's number one. We got a wood stove 2 winters ago now. Just because that's how my mind works. I'm sitting there going, man, I don't live exactly right in town, and I'm not the first person to get power back up. So I like to have a wood stove. Plus, when the holidays come around, man, and it's like 10 degrees outside, it's nice to have that fire roll. It's awesome. It really dries it out. You've got a lot of humidity in the air, and snowfall, and wet, sloppy snow, and put a tea kettle on top of the wood stove, fire that bad boy up, and it makes for a nice experience in the winter. So definitely recommend that. And then you got to have a couple cords of wood. We've seen ice storms knock out people's power for a week or two, and that's in the best of circumstances. When most of the rest of the country is fully functioning, there's an ice storm in a couple counties and a couple 100,000 people without power. Some people are sitting there pretty stranded for a week or two, and they have to go spend a night at a hotel or go to a relative's house or whatever it might be. When if you've got a wood stove, especially one that's got a little cooktop on top of it, you can pretty much go about your life. As long as you stick with a couple other things we're going to mention here. Secondarily, you need to have some water. You got to have water, right? So at least a gallon of drinking water a day per person in the household. That's just for drinking. So double that for cooking, and then double that again if you want to have any kind of sponge bath thing going on. You're obviously not going to be able to take showers and baths with a reserve tank of water, but if you've got, I always keep 100 gallons in my garage. My garage is insulated and it is heated, it wouldn't be in the event of a power outage, but it's not, unless it's super cold outside, it's not going to freeze in my garage. And if that's a really big concern with me, you know, I'll find a way to warm them up. I've got some alternative heating sources, and then I always have a big Berkey on hand as well, and then I've got a root cellar with extra drinking water that I use out of, we buy like organic juices, and I just save the glass bottles and rinse them out and put some water in them and rotate them. Every 6 months I'll swap that water out. And then Big Berkey carries about 3 gallons of water that's on the countertop in the kitchen. So that alone, you know, you've got a day's worth of drinking water. If you keep that nice and topped off, you're going to be all right. So, you know, all in all, I'd probably somewhere in the 150 gallon range that I keep on hand, even if the power goes out. And then combine that with the wood stove, and then you have, I've got natural gas. So as long as it's a regional or, you know, small scale power outage, which most of ours are because we have hydroelectric, and that hydroelectric plant can, as long as all the lines aren't down, right, as long as the transformers and the lines are operational, you know, the hydroelectric dam can pretty much keep this whole area fired up, even if the rest of the country is down for some reason, right? EMP or, you know, solar disturbance, whatever it might be, you know, if you're talking about large scale preparedness. So those three, you know, so if you've got natural gas, it's going to keep, the lines are going to keep pushing, at least for a while. So then you just use a match or a lighter and you can use your stove. Or obviously if you have a propane tank on your property, if you don't have availability of natural gas and you've got one of those 300, 400, 500 gallon propane tanks, you know, you're in the same boat for a while. You can just light up your stove with a match. And obviously if you've got the wood stove and you've got a proper cooktop on it, you can, you know, you can just cook it right on top of that thing as well. So that's always a choice. You got to think about animals. If you have you've got, you know, obviously you got your house pets if you have any of those, but then you got to think about your livestock. If you have, you know, chickens or goats or cows or whatever. Going into winter, I tend to know that there's no vegetation. In a worst kind of case scenario, I can't, in the summer, even though the goat's pasture kind of stinks, I've still got 9 more acres of woods I can release them in if there was, you know, a shortage of food for some reason. And they're going to do just fine. Same with the chickens. I can make chicken tractor. I've got chicken netting and let them roam all over the darn place and or pull them along into different paddocks throughout the woods, and they'd be good to go as well. But in the winter, obviously, it's not the case. So I've only got 4 Nigerian dwarfs, and they're pretty small goats. So obviously, they consume less, you know, probably half of you know, let's call, say, a Nubian. A Nubian's a pretty common goat, but Nubians can put some grub down. Even big goat, 100, 110 pounds. So I get about 10 to 12 bales of hay and keep that stored up. I'll do that here in October. I got a pretty good feed supplier right up the road from me, which is nice, that I found last year. And then I'll get, you know, probably 200 pounds of chicken feed and have that ready. I might have to do a little more than that this year because I haven't redone the math, but I've got like 10 more chickens this winter than I did last winter. So, you know, you got to take care of those things. They're not going to have a heat lamp, so make sure you've got a couple extra bales of straw and pine shavings, and they have really thick bedding in the pens. The thicker the bedding, the better, because it starts to have like create a little, almost like a composting effect. It starts to give off heat. You get the positive beneficial bacteria that starts growing in there, and it keeps the smell down. You should have a thick bedding regardless of whether it's winter or summer, because it, you know, it metabolizes the nitrogen put on there by the urine and fecal matter, and it also will put off heat in the winter that will, you know, allow them to bed down in it and stay fairly warm. So, you know, most goat pens and chicken pens aren't exactly designed to have 8 to 12 to 16 inches of bedding in it. So what I ended up having to do is taking a 6 or 8 inch board and putting it in the doorway and then nailing it on the inside of the door frame, so you've got a huge lip there that can hold all that stuff. Because if you just start piling it in there, sooner or later they start kicking it out the door, even if it's just because they're running in and out, and then you can't close the door, and then it freezes in the winter, and then you're out there trying to bust up hard frozen chunked manure out of the doorway, and it can kind of be a pain. I did it last year and I was like, I'm not doing this again. So I've done that already. So yeah, I'm gonna have, and then I'll have, you know, 3 or 4 bales of straw on hand. I think I'm gonna take, my wife orders a lot of stuff on Amazon, and you get the cardboard boxes. They like treat cardboard like it's going out of style. They you know, they'll send you a humongous box for some small item at Amazon. It's kind of ridiculous, but you can break those boxes down, get a staple gun, and staple them to the inside of your chicken pen or goat pen to add, you know, a little bit of R value in there and to cut down on any drafts you might have. So I'm going to do that this year as well, because it got flipping cold. It was ridiculous last year. You know, we have this little microclimate that really freezes. So, you know, you gotta, you know what to expect, and always expect a little bit worse than what you got the year before, because I got caught with my pants down a little bit last year because the previous 2 winters were so nice. Really didn't, you know, we had a couple little stretches of below 0 during the night the 2 winters before, but the snow was kind of, you know, you got 8 inches and it melted off down to like 4, and then you got a little more. It wasn't really that big of a pain, and any place you plowed was melting, and then, you know, it would fall again. There wasn't this continuous deep pack like we had last year. So, you know, that's something you want to think about, is just doing all these little things so that your life is easier. I was jumping fences and gates all winter last year because you know, when that first decent snow came, I didn't clear all the snow out from around all my gates. And so it just made doing chores and, you know, going about daily life a much bigger pain in the butt. So we're going to do that. I'm going to get on top of it this winter. I really don't want to deal with the headache of you know, making all the daily chores even more of a chore by not staying on top of what I need to do. And then, you know, besides the heat and the water and having a place to cook, about this time I'll start, you know, buying a little extra groceries. I always have somewhat of a larder at home, but buying a few extra groceries, you know, a couple extra items every time I go, and you know, some of the staples. And, you know, make sure you have get a freezer. I mean, get like a chest freezer or a backup freezer that goes in your garage, because there's no reason to ever run out of frozen items, right? Like, you know, if you see a killer deal at your local market, especially for like poultry or pork or beef or something, you know, buy 10 packs of it, put it in the freezer. You know, you just it's just kind of have that mentality. It's going to save you money in the long run anyway, right? If they have some sale and you're getting something for, you know, 60% of what it normally runs, and you've got a couple extra bucks, just get it all and pile it in the freezer. We bought, a year ago, we bought a half a cow, and I'm still eating off that thing. You know, we obviously don't eat just beef. We get a lot of pork and poultry as well, but anytime I want, I can just swoop in there and, hold on, I'm gonna back up here. I got a good spot. Oh no, there's one down there. You know, so get some extra beef or chicken or whatever it is, and you'll be good to go. You know, just have that freezer. And also the option with the freezer is if it's really cold and you lose power, assuming you've got at least, you know, 2 able-bodied people in your household, then you guys can just scoot that bad boy outside, especially if it's already in your garage. So you don't have to worry about powering it and keeping that product cold and frozen. So, you know, it's just a good option to try. Have that available to you. Always kind of try to be redundant. I certainly don't think anything crazy was gonna happen, you know, where it's like more than a week of some kind of terrible situation, but they do occur, and we're in kind of interesting times. So, you know, be diligent, and it's up to every person to kind of prepare their family and make sure they're protected. And you don't have to go crazy and go overboard with it, but be prudent and know that you've got a little cushion if you need it. All right, that's it for now. Thanks, guys.